Every year around this table, there's a chair that stays empty. Nobody mentions it out loud, but everybody feels it. Naomi used to love the holidays. Now she dreads the first week of December, the way some people dread a diagnosis. Because somewhere between now and New Year's Eve, someone will ask the question she has no good answer for. Have you talked to your mom? It's been 3 years of silence, 3 years of rehearsed answers at parties. We're just not close right now. 3 years of a guilt so quiet it doesn't even feel like guilt anymore. It just feels like who she is. She tells herself she's strong for walking away, but some nights, alone, she wonders if she's just cruel. If she's the reason this family is breaking. She remembers the exact sentence that ended it, not because it was the cruelest thing her mother ever said, but because it was the moment Naomi finally believed her mother would never change. So she did what felt like the only thing left to do. She left. And for 3 years, she's carried that decision like a stone in her chest, convinced that she broke something sacred, that she is the failure, the cold one, the unforgivable one. Looking for some kind of closure, Naomi started digging through old family photos, hoping maybe to find a version of her mother she could still love. Instead, she found a letter, tucked behind a photograph of her grandmother, dated almost 40 years earlier. She unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was her mother's, but the words weren't about Naomi at all. They were about her mother. The same accusations, the same silence, the same slammed door decades earlier. Only this time, her mother wasn't the one leaving. She was the one being left. For the first time, Naomi didn't feel like the villain of her family's story. She felt like she was reading the sequel to one she never knew existed. The letter was dated 1987, written by her mother, back when her mother was only 23, younger than Naomi is now. In it, she begged her own mother, Naomi's grandmother, to just talk to her, to stop punishing her with silence, to stop making love feel like something that had to be earned back. It wasn't signed, "Love your daughter." It was signed, "I don't know how to reach you anymore." Naomi sat there in the dust and silence, and something cracked open in her chest that wasn't grief. It was recognition. The exact ache she carried, the guilt, the hovering thumb over a phone she was too afraid to use. Her mother had carried first. Her mother hadn't invented the silence between them. She had inherited it. And then, without ever meaning to, she had passed it down, like a family heirloom nobody wanted, but everybody kept. For 3 years, Naomi believed she was the broken link, the cold daughter, the reason the family unraveled. But sitting in that attic, she realized something far more unsettling and far more freeing. This wasn't her failure. This was a pattern, one that had been quietly repeating itself generation after generation, long before she was even born. This is the part of the story most families never get to, not because they don't want healing, but because no one ever taught them why the silence keeps happening in the first place. At Connection Collective, we call this the anatomy of a break, and it's one of the most important truths we explore in family, the ties that bind and sometimes break. Here's the truth almost no one tells you about family estrangement. It is rarely an individual failure. It is almost always an inherited pattern. Silence, withdrawal, the slow fade out of a relationship. These aren't random personality flaws. They're coping mechanisms, passed down like eye color or posture, learned long before we ever had the words to name them. If your mother learned that conflict meant disappearance, if her mother learned that love had to be withdrawn as punishment, then by the time it reaches you, it doesn't feel like a choice anymore. It feels like instinct. This is the core of relational stewardship, the idea that we don't just inherit our family's traditions, we inherit their wounds, their unspoken rules about love, safety, and silence. And until someone in the family line becomes aware of the pattern, it doesn't stop. It just finds a new face to wear. Naomi wasn't the villain of her family's story. She was simply the first person in 3 generations to ask why the pattern existed at all. And that question, why, is where every act of healing actually begins. Understanding the pattern was the first step, but understanding alone doesn't heal anything. Naomi knew that if she waited for her mother to be ready, she might wait forever. The cycle doesn't break because the other person changes. It breaks because someone finally does something different. This is where relational stewardship stops being a concept and becomes an action. Step 1. Release the debt before you reach out. In the biblical model of reconciliation, forgiveness was never meant to be a transaction, something you trade for an apology. It's a release, a decision made in your heart, independent of whether the other person ever acknowledges the wound at all. Naomi had to ask herself a hard question. Could she reach out to her mother without secretly demanding she finally get it? Because reconciliation attempted as leverage, "I'll talk to you if you admit you were wrong," isn't reconciliation. It's just another form of the standoff. Stewardship means laying down the scoreboard before you ever pick up the phone. Step 2. Open the door. Don't force it open. You don't have to organize a sit-down confrontation to begin healing a relationship. In fact, most reconciliation attempts collapse because they start too big, too fast, with too much at stake. Naomi didn't call. She didn't write a 4-page apology demanding a response. She sent 6 words. Thinking of you today. No pressure. A small, low-risk gesture creates a door, without forcing the other person through it before they're ready. Step 3. Healing the cycle means setting a boundary, not just sending a bridge. This is the part most people miss. Breaking a generational pattern doesn't mean returning to the old relationship, the one that hurt you in the first place. It means building a new one where the door stays open, but you no longer disappear into someone else's silence to keep it that way. Naomi made a quiet promise to herself. She would reach out again and again, without demanding anything back. But she would no longer abandon herself in the process. That is relational stewardship, tending the relationship and tending yourself at the same time. She didn't know if her mother would respond. She didn't know if this would be the beginning of something or just one more unanswered message in a long line of silence. But for the first time in 3 years, Naomi wasn't waiting for her mother to break the pattern. She had already broken it herself.
It wasn't a perfect reunion. There was no dramatic embrace, no movie-style ending where decades of pain dissolved in a single afternoon. There was just a voicemail, a trembling voice, an open door finally being walked through, from both sides at the same time. Healing rarely arrives all at once. It arrives the way Naomi's did, one small, brave message at a time. Naomi's story isn't rare. At Connection Collective, we hear some version of it constantly. Adult children carrying guilt for cycles their own parents started. Parents carrying guilt for cycles their parents started. Generation after generation, mistaking an inherited wound for a personal flaw. This is exactly why we built the Human Connection series, and why Book 2 exists at all. Family, the ties that bind, and sometimes break, takes everything we touched on today, the anatomy of a break, relational stewardship, the art of reconciliation, and goes far deeper. Inside, you'll find the complete framework for understanding why your family's specific pattern of silence, conflict, or distance exists, and a practical biblical roadmap for initiating healing, even when, especially when, the other person isn't ready yet. You'll also learn the final piece we didn't cover today: how to make sure whatever pattern you inherited stops with you, so your children, or the next generation in your family, never have to find an old letter in an attic to understand what happened to them. If Naomi's story felt familiar, if there's a chair at your table that's been empty for a little too long, this book was written for you. Grab your copy of Family, The Ties That Bind and Sometimes Break, linked right here and in the description below. This is Connection Collective. Your history doesn't have to be your family's future.